All right, now let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by South African Tourism CEO Themba Khumalo. Themba, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We're listening to the minister there. The sector has started to see some improvements post the COVID-19 restrictions. What systems have you as SA Tourism put in place to ensure that this trend certainly does continue?
Well, thank you very much, Nati, and thank you very much to all the viewers. As we came out of the COVID-19 lockdown, began on very comprehensive marketing efforts in all of our source markets. And we've got 24 source markets around the world from which we drive tourism arrivals. But also during the lockdown period, as we eased, at least domestic travel, we started seeing that we started building a very strong and resilient domestic tourism market, because those that used to travel overseas couldn't travel overseas anymore. So we were traveling within the country. And what that did is it allowed our local tourism platform to reestablish itself. It worked out all the inefficiencies that were in the system. And it allowed, South Africans that would not normally have access to certain product because it relied on international travelers to travel within the country. And as a result of that, we have built a very strong and robust domestic base. The numbers speak for themselves. In 2021, we're at 7.1 million trips domestically within this period, and that jumped to 15.2. So that is a huge improvement and a huge jump in terms of building the domestic base. From an international standpoint, the key driver of recovery is, yes, the attractiveness of our destination, and we are a blue chip destination for travelers around the world. But the main thing was all around getting the airlift back. So making sure that airlines fly back into South Africa. We saw Delta Airlines and and United Airlines flying into Cape Town and into Johannesburg. We've also signed a great historic MOU with the Emirates Airlines out of the UAE. But we're seeing all over the place that airlift is returning back into the country. And that is a vehicle that brings tourists into the country. And with the return of all of these big airlines, that is how we're going to build tourism recovery. We've also been meeting with all our value chain partners to make sure that not only do we have airlift, but that the throughput at all the ports of entry, especially, our international airports and even at our border posts. I know that some of them are a lot more tricky than others, but those where you've got free flow of tourist arrivals, that those are eased, and to make sure that we get road transfer, travelers coming into the country. That base has been absolutely phenomenally set, and we'll continue to do that over the next couple of months.
I want to stick with that point that you're making now about the strong domestic base. There are some concerns, though, about the rising domestic travel costs, making it somewhat difficult for South Africans and quite possibly international travelers. What's driving these increases and costs? And are you hearing of these concerns?
The increase in domestic travel costs, is a global issue. I mean, it's all around, the war between Russia and the Ukraine that, has affected fuel prices around the world. So it is not a unique issue, to the South African market. That, it's basically, global economics, impacting our local economy. What you will find is that there's a difference between a tourist and a traveler. A tourist travels when all the elements are favorable. A traveler travels because it is who they are. A traveler travels because it is what defines them. And they will sacrifice other things in order for them to be able to travel, because that is part of growth and that is part of developing their own affinity with the world and with the countries in which they visit. So our epicenter of who we target to travel around the country is the traveler mindset. And what we've seen is that those that for whom travel means everything to are continuing to travel, they're continuing to sacrifice other things, and we're building a very, very strong base for our domestic market.
And just talking about, of course, the overseas arrivals, understandably that South Africa during the first 6 months of this year, we at least at 45% of levels, before the pandemic. Just in terms, as we wrap up this interview, just in terms of encouraging South Africans to visit destinations within the country, what are some of the exciting things that SA Tourism is doing, and how are you encouraging people to travel their country?
So, beginning this coming Monday, we are starting our annual domestic travel week. This is where product owners across the country are selling product packages wholesale price. This is the time to book your holiday, to book it forward into the festive season, even to book it into next year. So go onto our short-lived platform, onto our website. You'll find that is where all the great deals will be available. And that will be able to give access to millions of South Africans to be able to access great opportunities to travel over the next couple of months. That is the biggest thing that we're doing over this period, is really making travel accessible to all of our citizens that can afford to do so. And, we're really inviting you to travel your country, enjoy your country, because, it really belongs to you. And that is my pitch to South Africans. It also makes us better hosts and hostesses when people come from outside of the country, because when you've traveled yourself, you're a lot more conscious about, what it takes and how it feels to be inside the tourism value chain, and will be able to host, people coming from outside of the country a lot more confidently. And as we begin to receive visitors from all over the world, let us show them who we really are as South Africans. We're warm, we're hospitable, we know our country, we know how to, take people around and show them a good time. Let us really host the world confidently and boldly. And to everyone who is in the tourism value chain, let us bring the absolute best of how we roll out South African hospitality. What is happening around the world is we are exporting, our culture. For example, Amapiano is the biggest thing all over the world. I just returned from North America. Everywhere you go, our beats are becoming, household beats right around the world. So the world knows who we are. So when they come here, let us show them the actual heartbeat of who we are as South African people, and let them bring those dollars, those pounds, those yen, those euros into our economy, so that we can create jobs, sustain small businesses, and create new entrepreneurs going forward, and make this country the greatest country on earth that I know it is.
An enticing pitch it is. Thank you so much, Themba Khumalo. Unfortunately, that's where we have to leave it for now. And Themba Khumalo, of course, is the South African Tourism CEO.